Q3 goals at this point. Really, a couple of updates. We had a good meeting with wayfinding signage today with our team from community services, recreation, Main Street, tourism. That seems to be progressing, I think, imminently, maybe in the next 2 to 4 weeks. So next couple of council meetings, we should have some sort of a proposal for you, ironing out some of the design details. But realistically, they have a plan, number of signs they are estimating that we need. We also need a kind of a staging plan, like, which signs would, because of the cost or perceived cost of it. I don't think that it's realistic to expect that we would pull the trigger and be able to, change out every sign in the city in one fiscal year. So we're trying to figure out which prioritization we use for that wayfinding plan. Do we start downtown and go outward, start outward and come in, or a little bit of both? And I do have had some response from the city attorney on the redevelopment authority. We're still looking at that. I sent that to the outside legal counsel for review for some of the questions. The main issue that city attorney brought to the attention is that there's a lot of authority that the redevelopment authority would have, but ultimately, particularly pertaining to bond issuance, but there didn't seem to be a value proposition in creating that authority in and of itself for the city. In other words, they don't have powers necessarily that maybe the council or someone else might have outside of that bond issuance, which ultimately would probably be backstopped by the city as well. So I asked those questions directly to the outside legal counsel who has worked on redevelopment authorities in other communities to find out kind of, if that was the right train of thought or if there was something that maybe we were missing. And so I'm waiting for a response on that at this time, but still moving forward. It is legal. Have a minimum of, I think, if Rayner's here, is it three members? Is that right? On the redevelopment authority, it's a minimum of 3 members that it would constitute, and it would be similar to any of these other quasi-governmental authorities like the ID board, where they would have independent authority, meetings, financials, with the ability to do bond issuances, but without a revenue stream. So ultimately, putting it back in the city.
And to have a land bank, we don't have to have a redevelopment.
You do not. They're two independent items. So the land bank, again, we're looking January timeframe when the taxes aren't paid for the most amount of properties in the community to see if we qualify in that 100. If you recall, we had to have a minimum of 100 properties to qualify to establish a land bank authority. So still think that's the best course of action. Still moving forward with all of our city projects. In fact, if you've driven around, I took a ride around this weekend. Our multi-purpose fields have lights up if you haven't driven by there lately, and it's coming along nicely. We have pickleball is mobilization is imminent. I thought that would already have happened this week, but we've got a little bit of delay, but certainly within the next week or two, we expect pickleball courts to mobilize. And I've got another item on here I want to mention on that. And then Sane and Associates will be here talking about that transportation plan. You had outlined two segments that you would like to connect, or at least do a deeper dive on. They'll be here on site tomorrow to meet with me and drive those 2 areas and see the lay of the land in order to get a better idea for a proposal for us about what that might look like. Essentially, define the scope of work. But what that looks like right now is we're evaluating the pros and cons of each of those routes in terms of what it would do for traffic, congestion, if it was school bus routes or connectivity for a fire station was mentioned on one of them. All those kind of things. And then some of the cons, what routes would be feasible. So in other words, there could be a very small connection on an interior road that exists now, but it would tie it into a neighborhood. So that would have some cons along with it, but it would maybe be the cheapest option. And then, limited access connectivity from route to route, point A to point B, would ultimately be, potentially the longest route and most expensive, but it would have other pros and other cons associated with it. So we're going to try to sum all that up, get it in a proposal, and then get that back to you. And then we've had a lot of progress. I expect in the next week you to get a link from Emily about the city website. Really excited about the progress we're making on the city website, and probably 30 days after that, move forward with some level of app for the city as well. So, and that's about it on the Q3 update.
All right. Any questions of Jonathan on these? Like he said, these are fairly new, so we'll let those develop. All right. So we will move on to our agenda for this evening. We'll review that. Should have copies of the financial report, which Leanne sent out over the weekend. All right, so first few items, of course, same as always, roll call, open prayer and pledge of allegiance, of which I've got somebody can say the prayer, then we'll approve the agenda and move on to the consent agenda, which consists of our work session minutes from June 20th, our city council meeting minutes from July 5th, contract billings for Beasley Construction for the multipurpose field, Wiregrass Construction Company for the Phase 3B resurfacing. Is this the final payment? So we've still got one more. And we've got some invoices from Poly Incorporated regarding each of those two projects, and Ewing Connor and Associates Contract Administration for the demolition project, Fine Getty, which is our state government affairs contract, Hand Arundel, which is the Jonathan, that's for the work on the land bank and redevelopment authority. And then our travel requests from Finance Department, Main Street Department, and Police Department. Any questions or concerns on the consent agenda? Should have all the supporting documentation in your packets. All right, then we'll move on to a permit request from Wiregrass Emergency Pregnancy Services for a Run Baby Run 5K, and privilege of the floor and staff reports. Moving on to old business, we've got the CDBG demolition project phase 6. So Barry, you want to brief us on this? Looks like we've got a recommendation for
yes, sir.
Grant this.
We roughly have about $55,000, $54,000 and change left in the grant for demolition for projects, and we knew that we had 9 on the list that were ready to be demoed, and we knew that they would probably come in over that $54,000 number. So what we did is we bid all 9 of those, which are the ones you see there. We had 2 bids that came in, one at $73,000, one at $62,000. We also did deductive alternates, so we knew it would probably come in over. That was our guess. So you have to award deductive alternates in the order in which they're listed. So the deductive alternate one was a 0 Cinema Drive, which was by low bid $25,000. And then if you want to, you can do deductive alternate 1. And with deductive alternate 1, we get back within our grant money that's there. So the recommendation of David Ewing was, if the city is willing to put $7,350 out of general funds into the project, that all the construction is handled through the construction through CDBG. We're on the hook for everything up to $7,350. If we're willing to inject $7,350, we could do everybody on the list from 1 through 9, including Cinema. And then if you wanted to deduct anything off the list, the first one to deduct off the list would be Cinema Drive, and that would basically, if we stop, we'd be turning some money back under the CDBG grant, or possibly we could go back out for bids for one last phase and get 1 or 2 more houses done. So that's a recommendation from David Ewing, was to go ahead and award all 9 of those that were on the list.
What is 0 Cinema Drive?
So that is an old section of the motel that's there. I had pictures of it that I'd be glad to show you if you want me to put it on the screen, but it's a a old abandoned section of that at the end. When Cinema Drive comes over, it's over on the left. Over
So
there,
this is out across from the college, right?
it is across from the college. It's a building where we've had some issues there with homeless, with some other stuff going on around that building. It's been an issue for the city, and we were able to get CBG to allow us to add that as a potential structure to be demolished under this grant.
Does anybody have any issues with the $7,000? I guess we can just call that a match.
I visited each one of these sites today, and I am totally opposed for the city to pay money to tear down part of the old motel on Cinema Drive.
Okay.
Taxpayers' money, he can tear it down himself, and we have codes in place to enforce those codes and make him tear it down.
Yes, sir.
Thoughts?
No, I agree, Eugene. You're right on that one.
It's a business there at zero. It's a business there at zero.
So this is not a
The whole-
hotels operate.
that hotel that's there, right?
Yeah.
So this is not like a normal residence, like a single family dwelling. They did allow us to add some businesses in on this grant process that we've been doing. So this is one of a handful that they allowed us to add to this project. We've done this in other areas of the city. So you go underneath the train trestle, that first one on the right, the old green building that was there, that was also a business that was torn down in a previous phase.
But
There's other ones that we have done. I just want to point that
But
out.
were
to
they
you.
occupied?
None of these are
None of those
occupied.
are occupied.
None of these have anybody living in them.
This is like partially, obviously.
Right now, there's nobody living in there. The roof's falling in. There's nobody living in that hotel. It's
No,
But the
it's
other-
abandoned.
It's not
I'm thinking
feasible
of
to be
the.
occupied.
I'm thinking it's like attached to that hotel that's not. I'm got
This
the
is a
wrong
separate-
idea.
It's a
Separate
row of their
building.
rooms.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Greg, you're,
I'm trying to get the vision.
I have not driven over there and looked at it, so.
so to Barry's point, it's been done, but to Eugene's point, those didn't require the expenditure of general fund.
That is
dollars,
correct.
right? So that is a distinction.
There is a distinction. This one, you're adding city money to the grant on top of what we've committed to do this building.
All right. So if we award it, which I believe what I'm hearing, Eugene's suggestion would be to award the contract with deductive alternate number one, which would leave about $18,000 on the grant.
And I'd have to go back to David and see if it's capable for us to do another building or two, another home or two, or if we just turn that back in and start over with the next grant on the next grant cycle. I'd have to find that answer out.
Okay.
And also to Eugene's point, that's been one of the perks of getting the grant. We haven't been spending money from the general fund, so that
We did have a match portion of this. but-
contradict what we've previously done.
Yes, ma'am.
So with that said, what authority do we have to make the business owner tear that down himself?
So we'd go back in with our property maintenance code and make them bring that up to speed or demolish the building and go back to the same process we're going through other areas of the city. It's a pretty lengthy, drawn-out process. It won't happen overnight, but we'd start that immediately.
All right. So Eugene, you're going to make a motion to approve this with deductive alternate number one?
Yes.
Okay.
And I'll
All right.
second it.
All right. All right. Well, it sounds like
Well, we
that's got support. All right. Moving on to, thank you, Barry. Moving on to new business. We'll review and consider resolution 71823, which is the procurement of underwriting services for 2023 warrant. And then the next item also has to do with the 2023 warrant. Jonathan and Mr. Langham, y'all want to explain to everybody what's going on here?
So, council members, at the last council meeting, I briefly kind of talked to you about what was going on with the water department. And Mayor Cooper is out of town on business today, but I think Councilman Goolsby here can verify what I'm telling you from the water board meetings. They passed a $5 per meter fee for maintenance and capital projects for the water system about a year and a half ago. And that generated a certain amount of dollars that are out there. Looking at a 5-year capital plan for the water system, they have a significant amount of capital projects that could be done on an annual basis, but might take 20 years or more. I think over the next 5 years, their 5-year capital plan looks something like, if they did everything, $19 million. So one option is to borrow money using that revenue stream, and they could do it in a multitude of ways, which I'll let Mr. Langham with Fraser here talk about. But we already have an existing agreement with the Water Board for a bond issuance that was done several years ago, and in that agreement, one option would be to continue that agreement, modify it, and use some of those funding mechanisms and extend out the payment schedule to accomplish what the Water Board wants to do. The benefit for the water system is that the city, being AA- credit rated city, can borrow at somewhere about 20 basis points cheaper, which will save about $300,000 to the water system and ultimately the taxpayers. Additionally, the time frame to pay those monies back under one of the proposed mechanisms would be 16 years, as opposed to 20 or 25 or 30 if the water system were to go out to a bank or do a bond issuance on their own. So there are a multitude of issues in there that would benefit both the city, the citizens, and the water system. But I'll let David talk a little bit more about how we got there, looking at the city structure, how it would impact maybe our credit rating, if at all, and any other issues he might have.
Great to see everyone this evening. As Jonathan mentioned, we've worked through the variations of the Water Board and the city's funding agreement. So this dates back to 2009. So this is something that's been around almost 15 years now, where the city lends its aid and credit to the Water Board, and the Water Board's able to take on money for projects, go out, improve their system, and then the debt lies on the city's books, but the Water Board is just simply making a pass-through payment. So when Leanne does the accounting, those revenues are coming in from the Water Board, servicing that debt. Now, those pieces of debt are rolled up with other city debt. So in the past, some of you may remember in 2018, 19, and 20, we had really low interest rates. We were able to refinance a good bit of the city's debt and save the taxpayers some money there. Part of that was those Water Board funding agreements. And so those funding agreements, we were able to save the Water Board some money on that. And so the idea that we come up with for this current capital improvement plan is to just continue with that funding agreement. To Jonathan's point, it is a savings for the board to be able to use the city's aid and credit to be able to borrow this money. You guys have a higher credit rating than the Water Board does. Plus, when a board, such as a water board or a school board or a gas board, borrows money on their own, they only have a dedicated revenue stream that they can pledge to bondholders in order to repay that debt. As a city, you guys pledge full faith and credit. So just the nature of the market is that an investor is going to give the city a better interest rate than he would the water board. That's just the way that it is across America, not just specific to Enterprise. So savings there, savings in some cost up front. We don't have to buy an insurance policy if we go through the city because of your credit rating. The Water Board would. So there's some interest rate savings and there's some upfront savings that, like I said, Jonathan mentioned, it's going to come out to between $300,000 and $400,000 depending upon when we hit the market. So we think it's a great idea in terms of your partnership with the Water Board. Obviously, their success is tied to your success. Your success is tied to their success. So your predecessors on this council saw fit to do this, like I said, way back in 2009, and these funding agreements have come around every few years since then as the Water Board has taken on projects. So, like I said, feel really good about kind of the plan that's come together. For you guys, the credit implications are negligible. We do have to go for standard credit review, just like we do when you guys are borrowing money for city improvements. The message that we share during that credit review is the strength of the Water Board and the revenue source they have to make this payment, right? So while your name is attached to it, it's their funding that is coming through in order to make this payment. So, in terms of their financial strength, Jonathan made a great point about their new revenue source in this capital improvement fund that's going to allow them to take on these projects. But I think it'll allow them to definitely accelerate the timeline. As we kind of looked at the different variations, it was going to be a rather slow process to either do it on their own or do it in some form of pay as you go. So I think this will give them the option to they can knock out anywhere from 24 months to all the way up to 5 years worth of projects as a part of this one issue. We're going to have to do some fine tuning over the next couple of weeks and decide kind of what all we're going to tackle with that. But those options are on the table. So I think it like I said, it'll be a pretty quick and painless process. You guys' approval tonight will allow us to go ahead and kind of tee it up, get the documents ready. If y'all remember from the time that y'all went to the market as a city, we got, a little bit of documentation that we've got to do. We go before the credit review committee, get their stamp of approval. Then we go to the market. We actually lock in an interest rate and fund the projects for the water board. In terms of timeline, we think we'd be back in front of you probably sometime in the month of September, probably at your first meeting in September, to say that we've got everything kind of teed up and ready to go, and we're ready to hit the market. We try to go ahead and get them into the market in the month of September and have their funding ready to go by October, so that Alan and Glenn and the team can go ahead and start bidding those projects. Because as you know, with water and sewer infrastructure, time is money there, and so go ahead and get them started. So I'd love to answer any questions you guys have about the process or the kind of mindset that we came to do the agreement this way.
You might have anything for Mr. Langham? Everybody still comfortable with where we're headed with this? Of course, no obligation at this point, right?
That's right. Correct.
Kind of, this is something very similar to what we did several years ago with the water board.
Mm-hmm.
And these capital improvements that are coming up are very important. One of them is a tank for the new VA home. We're talking about new tanks, new well, refurbishing tanks that we already have. So I certainly ask the council to approve this.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks.
Thank you all.
All right. The next item, just procurement of bond counsel. That's just standard procedure, right? This same bond counsel we've been using.
Yes, sir. Austin Ray with Butler Snow has been on last several bond issuance that the city has done. Very familiar, works really well with the city attorney. That would be our recommendation would be to continue that relationship and have him, prepare the documents. Should we move forward with funding agreement with the water board?
All right. Any questions about bond counsel? All right. Let's tell us about this Cutts property agreement.
Yeah. So this is something that city attorney and I guess Rick Cutts and his wife had worked on. So for you and the general public, certainly for me, for years, 20 years or so that I've lived in Enterprise, I have gone to eat at Cutts Restaurant and never knew where their parking lot ended and the rec center parking lot began. And so it was a good partnership for a number of years. It just wasn't formalized. Well, currently today you will see a lot of work going on out there, and there's asphalt already down, curb, and so Rick and his wife have graciously worked with the city to try to formalize an agreement in perpetuity for the city and the restaurant to continue to have joint use of that parking lot that's on their property. And so when we do have events at the rec center, this adds, tens of parking lot spots within the parking lot for the public to use. Alternately, Cutts will benefit from the activity. And so we think this is a good win-win situation for private business, and not uncommon with some of the other agreements that we've done with whether it's a Baptist church, Methodist church, or Yancey Parker lot. We needed space rather than acquire it or do something else. Courthouse is another good example. So we think this is a win-win, and this just kind of memorializes that and gets recorded at the courthouse so that public can enjoy that should it change hands at some point in the future.
So it will assign to any future owners.
Yes, sir.
Any questions All right. We've got a request to purchase a scoreboard from Lakemore. Billy, y'all should have seen this in your packet. I understand this was damaged in a recent storm, right?
That's correct. About June 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th, somewhere around there, we had some major wind that come through, and we had a tree to fall on one of the scoreboards, and the insurance adjusters that came out and evaluated all our damages, and of course they'll be reimbursing us about $6,500 worth to go towards the scoreboard. On the replacement, we wanted to upgrade it so that the scoreboard can do multi-sports, football and baseball and softball, and not just a baseball, softball scoring. So that's one of the difference of more than what it is. So it gives the opportunity to upgrade it, but unfortunately, we're having to claim some insurance to go towards it.
Any questions of Billy on this scoreboard? All right. Thank you, Billy.
Thank you.
All right. Next two items regard constructing balconies on Main Street over public sidewalk. I think we've got a little presentation. We'll let y'all have the floor. Are both sides working? Yeah, why don't you spin it where where the audience can see it also, if you don't mind.
Council, so we have a new process that we're going through with permission to construct a balcony in the public right of way. We have both developers here tonight to answer any questions that you have, and I want to thank Navigator for coming out and Donna Fred for coming out to be a part of this. So basically, I'm just going to run you through some of the elevations, the outlook of the building, and then just the forward plan for the building, kind of explain it from our side. And then any question that you have, I'll be happy to answer. And Navigator will be happy to answer. Do you want to come up since you first up? Okay. So I just have some slides. I have the front of the building, and then I have just the dimensions of it, just to kind of give them some context of what's going on. So that's the elevation of the building that we were submitted. As you can see, they have a balcony protruding off of the building. They'll be in the right of way. And then this is I'll zoom in on that a little bit if you can. Works. That's the blueprint for the building, showing the balcony will be off about 5.5 feet. And then the elevation change of that, I believe, is about 14 foot at like the bottom of the balcony. You have any questions about that?
So nothing's coming down onto the sidewalk.
No,
It's a
coming down the
cantilever.
sidewalk on this one, no, sir. It's just projecting out into the right of way that we are in the public right of way. And so it's going to be hanging over the right of way, and that's the reason why we needed to.
So what are our regulations? Just that the council approves any balcony, or
So the regulation says that the city council has to approve any structure built in the public right of way, and because this is overhanging into the public right of way, it requires council approval.
and recommendation from staff is to approve.
Yes, sir. Recommendation from staff is to approve.
Okay. Any questions?
I'm just glad to see it's being built back.
Yeah.
We are too.
Yeah. So
So I do have some questions
Okay.
about the processes. I know that when I was working on Main Street, we had built this checklist that we could take for us contractors, also new businesses coming in, and they could go down this checklist so we could do everything that we needed to do. We had submitted these plans, I think, back in February, and at the last minute, we get forms that we need to have signed today so we could be here today to get this approved. It's just frustrating from a contractor standpoint, but I would like to see if the council would look at developing a checklist that we can take to our customers, and they have an understanding up front of the hurdles that we need to get through, and that we can add that to our timeline. Because actually, this could have stopped a multi-million-dollar project.
Yep. Certainly don't disagree.
Yes, sir. So, and I do apologize for any of the frustration within this process. Like we said, it's something that we don't do a lot of, and so we had to develop the process on the fly.
Use the mic, please.
Yes, sir. I apologize. So we had to develop this process to try to get everything in on time. Our legal counsel advised us to make sure that we got this approved through City Council. And so we will work on getting a checklist for all the developers for this, because hopefully this does become a trend down Main Street with the new development and things like that. People investing their money in Main Street.
So this includes awnings for any businesses that were renovating or building. If an awning needs to come out over that, you would have to go through the same process.
From what I've been advised, yes, sir.
Okay, that's what I need to know. Thank you.
All right. Thank y'all. All right. Same, or go ahead.
Is this only because the sidewalk is technically owned by the City of Enterprise?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
All right. So no, I'm taking it no concerns with Navigator's request. All right. So now we're moving on to Donna Fro's request for the same thing, a request to permission to construct balcony.
Yes, sir.
So we've got 2 balconies.
So this is going to be a wraparound balcony, and so this is the full 3D sketch of the building and how the building is going to look when it is completed. The balcony is a wraparound balcony. I believe it protrudes about 7 feet out onto the sidewalk. The sidewalk will have to be renovated, and the ribbons for the sidewalks will then be met up with the poles. And so I believe, how tall is it going to be? The ceiling height?
We got about 12 to 14 feet to the balcony walkout, which would match the finished floor height of the second floor. Mr. Carr wanted to make sure that balcony also served as an area of refuge, for fire safety, which it would, and also, it would really kind of transform that whole corner where the Boll Weevil is, and be a showplace and a focal point for downtown. But he got this idea from Bourbon Street in New Orleans. We researched that wrought iron, and we have matched everything pretty much to one of the buildings that he saw and liked. And so this is pretty much a replica of what we saw there.
All right.
We also were talking with Justin and some of the other folks in planning about the light fixtures that would be used along that street and along Main Street. And instead of the poles, what we would do is we'd get the bracket arm type of luminaire that would match the design of the pole luminaires and mount those either to the balcony or to the columns that face the street. So the lighting would actually be a part of the building and would match that on the street, either as a bracketed.
Sir, I'm sorry. Could you speak up, please?
Yeah,
I'm
sorry.
having a hard time.
I'm sorry. Yeah, the bracket lights would match the luminaires that you already have downtown historically, either as a bracketed device or as a pole, or and we would mount that either to the column face or to the side of the balcony. And that's to be decided. We're trying to find right now a manufacturer that matches what you already have downtown.
Is the sidewalk renovation going to be part of his contract?
Yes.
It's not going to cost the city anything.
No, sir. We'll go back with exactly what you have. We'll just match the ribbons up to the column spacing.
Any concerns from staff, or is this coming as a form of recommendation?
We recommend this a balcony. I think we've worked with the developer to get any concerns out of the way before we presented it to you. So we recommend that this be approved.
All right. Any Scotty, Greg, concerns? Eugene, Sonia? All right.
Two things that were brought up. We made sure of. One was that the sidewalk will be ADA compliant, but even with the columns there, that it'll meet all the ADA requirements. And also met with ALDOT, because part of this balcony is on frontage of Main Street. So we've talked to ALDOT. They don't have any concerns with it other than coordination with the existing signal pole, which puts the light out there. And I've talked to Pat as of yesterday or the day before about making sure that we have adequate distance away from that pole for maintenance. So we'll coordinate that through the design process. But I just want to let you know we did look at those two things as well.
I do have one, I'm sorry. The lift that's on the side, is that picture true where those steps going up, they're going to be flat, so ADA, go in? I know they had a lift on the side.
Yes.
To lift folks.
We're actually taking the whole structure inside the building out completely.
Okay, so
It'll be non-combustible construction on the interior, but the finished floor level will be level with the street.
Okay.
We're protecting the column and the column base and all the cut stone around the bottom. But the floor will be lowered so that when you walk in, you're walking in at street level.
Yes. Thank you.
Any other questions or concerns? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and that's all for our agenda. Any suggestions for additions? I didn't hear any concerns with any of the agenda items, so I'm assuming we will approve that agenda as submitted. All right, back to we're a little behind schedule. We're going to have to move some of these to after we're going to have to do the executive session after regular meeting. So let's move on with this. Our short-term rental ordinance, have a conflict with that.
So we were recently notified by the Alabama Department of Revenue. So if you recall, in the short-term rental ordinance, nothing we passed was, as a city, the council passed, did not increase any taxes. This was something that basically boiled down to, we did not have a way for property owners who had short-term rentals to remit taxes to the city. There was no way for them because they weren't getting a business license. So the state defines short-term rentals as anything under 180 days. And we had some discussion, and some people came up here and talked about how that should be reduced to what was agreed upon was 90 days, and that's ultimately what was approved. Because of that, ADOR, or Alabama Department of Revenue, has said, hey, that's great, but we cannot collect for you. So we are back in the situation where the city is in self-collection mode. So in other words, the state says 180 days, the county says less than 180 days, we say less than 190. So between less than 90, between days 90 and 179, there's a gap that ADOR will not collect for us, which is a problem for us because we are not equipped as a city to collect those. We don't have a portal or anything set up to do that. Or the staff to handle that. So the quick and easy fix and recommendation from staff would be to realign the short-term rental ordinance with the state language of 180 days or less than 180 days. There's an email in your packets that kind of outline the situation. Certainly not asking for anything tonight, but we do want to try to make that fix if possible, if you concur. So that would look like potentially at one of the next council meetings introducing an amended ordinance and then adopting it 2 weeks or longer after that.
So the only thing that y'all are asking for is for us to redefine the length that.
Well, there's a second issue. I'll let Leanne talk about it.
Hi. Okay, so the second issue on there, yes, we're asking for that to be aligned with the state's definition, which again is that less than 180 days. The other issue is that the original ordinance, the 11-17-09, that instituted the lodging tax, does not specifically state that we're giving half of that, or that we're giving a half discount to businesses operating in the PJ. So I think at
that's
the time,
the one from 2009.
From 2009,
Yeah.
yes, the 11-17-09. Because that's our standard policy. You know, we do that on our business licenses when we issue those out, and on everything else, we normally give that discount to those operating in the PJ. However, because back in 2009, it was not clearly stated that way. If we give them the 0.5%, the discount on the short-term rental, which references this ordinance from 2009, they contradict each other. So the additional item that we need to do is to amend the ordinance from 2009 to include the PJ and let them know that we're giving them a 50% discount off of what we charge for inside the city limits. if that
So,
makes sense.
so in a nutshell, the most recent ordinance, the short-term rental ordinance, says that the PJ will be one half the
One
regular
half.
rate,
Yes.
and we also reference the authority from
09.
granted to us from 09,
Mhm.
and it does not give the discount.
Yes.
So they both need to be in alignment.
Yes, because they contradict
Yeah.
each other.
Yeah.
We need to make sure that both.
Right.
Again, it's the same with 180 days. They're contradictory. So we need to make sure that in both areas we're aligning everything to be the same.
All right, Scotty, thoughts about these two fixes?
It needs to be done. We got to line them. It just makes sense.
Greg?
Well, obviously it has to be aligned. I know we were trying to adjust that mainly because of the military base, but if there's no way to collect it, then I don't know what our options are.
There's not really, and in that case, they're still being charged the tax. You know, if you stay in the hotel or stay in the short-term rental, you're still going to be assessed those fees from the county, from the state. It does nothing to alleviate any of those fees. So again, this helps us by putting it in a line with what the state and the county are doing, and it allows us to hand it over to ADOR for administration, because we're just not able, unfortunately, to be able to do that ourselves.
Right, we're not going to stand up an entire sales tax division just to collect
Correct.
short-term
Process
rental.
return.
I agree with that.
And,
Yeah.
yeah.
Eugene?
I'm good with it.
Sonia?
Fine, I used to put nothing about it.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, next item is our pickleball project.
Okay, so in your packets, you will see a construction document from Beasley Construction Services, who is working on the pickleball facility that we bid out. We were approached, the mayor's office was approached by some concerned pickleballers about the design of the pickleball courts. Specifically, if you look on the last page, there's a court diagram. And one of the things that they were concerned about for player safety, in other words, balls traversing from one court to the other, was the length of run of the fence line on the interior, what they refer to as the kitchen on the pickleball court. And so if you look in the green area there, it roughly increased 7 or 8 feet on each interior length of fence on each side of the courts on this diagram here in green. It was about $8,400 on the first page. It says the exact amount, but $8,437 or something to that effect. And that was not covered in the bid price to make those accommodations, which I made clear. One of those members of that pickleball group came back and said, "Hey, if you guys would consider doing this, I'll pay for it myself. This is that important to us, and I don't want people getting hurt or doing anything like that out there." And so with that, I said, "Hey, regardless, you pay for it. The council opts to amend the contract or the budget for this. I need to bring it to the council to see what they want to do." And so, as I understand it, there would be multiple options in there. Council could just amend the budget if we have the funds available and make that $8,400 change. We could do nothing and leave it as is, or let some portion of the individual who said they would pay for it up to 100% pay for it. It could be a 50-50 or 100%. But I wanted to make sure that you had input on that and knew the situation and kind of gave us guidance as staff on how to proceed.
So, Jonathan had mentioned this to me. One thing he and I discussed was, potentially, precedent setting and, maybe trying to encourage partnerships like this of maybe a match style, maybe we've got community members wanting to see improvements made to city facilities. Obviously it's going to be an asset controlled, cared for by the city. What if we offered to pay half of it, if they would pay half of it, and then that would set some precedent for future type of partnerships between private individuals wanting to see stuff done.
No, I agree with that. I know there's several organizations out there that would like to be part of the city to help with parks and things, and this is one of them.
Yeah.
And every pickleball court I've ever played on, seen, there's always that fence out there for the safety and stuff.
Yep.
So it's got to be done.
And to be clear, the fence was there. This is just extending it.
Right. It extends it. I guess I'm trying to learn pickleball terms, but the kitchen, the back edge of it where people serve, the larger that opening is, so people can traverse from court to court, the more at risk, obviously, balls or other foot traffic may go through from one court to the next, which if you're moving around and don't see it, it could potentially pose a safety risk, and that's what the pickleball community is advocating.
Sonia, your thoughts?
I'm not opposed to some type of collaboration if we can fine tune it good. I mean,
Eugene?
I agree with the proposal for us to pay half and them pay half.
Greg?
Yeah, I like the idea.
So you want to see if we can get that negotiated with an agreement? And
Sure. So to be fair, this is kind of the first time I've had an individual offer to help the city out in that way. So I'll need to consult with legal counsel to see what exactly needs to be done. But depending on what you would like to see, it sounds like some sort of a 50-50 or something like that. I'll try to get a draft to you by the next council meeting of what that proposed agreement or contribution. Rainer, can you help me out? Like what? Okay. And I think by the next council meeting, we can have something to you.
All right. Sounds good. Moving on to debris pickup.
Okay. So this is
our favorite topic.
Yeah, this is a hot topic, and first and foremost, I to the people that are here and watching online, especially to council members, I want to apologize personally. Okay, the debris pickup, there's a lot of excuses and reasons that it's going on, and I've enumerated that in emails. But the bottom line is we are failing, and it's not our staff's fault. Okay, we have a lot of hardworking people out there that are doing their job each and every day, working overtime and busting their rear ends. We are failing them. Okay, from a leadership perspective in getting this addressed, and as a result, we're failing the public. So I want to put that on me and our staff to try to do a better job. So with that, some of the ways that we are addressing this currently, we have immediately shortened the route that drivers are driving to go and take debris that wouldn't otherwise go to the grinding site, would go to the landfill. That's something that our staff came up with into a temporary location, at which time we will take it as time permits to the landfill. But we're holding it. It allows our trucks to immediately do turnarounds. So instead of maybe two trips a day that they would have to go.
Where's that site?
The grinding site?
No, where are they putting it temporarily?
At the grinding site. So we have some room over there that they're going to put it and hold it. And it won't be indefinite. But
so this is landfill debris that we're dumping at
for a very short period of time, just to make the turnarounds faster. So we may triple or quadruple the amount of runs we can make as a result of that.
And this is not household garbage that attracts flies.
No.
This is boxes and mattresses.
Yeah, or maybe somebody tore some lumber down off of a thing that's got some nails in it or something. Yeah. So all in environmental compliance law, our guys and girls know what they're doing with that. But this will greatly impact our ability to do turns right now with the staff we have. Where we're shortcoming, obviously the staff piece is a big part of that, CDL drivers, and we've talked about that for a number of months. But additionally, where I want to take the blame is probably 2 weeks ago or earlier, should have realized or had something in place to go out and contract out services. And so, I talked to the city attorney over the last few days about what options we could have to expedite that process. We were waiting on FEMA to potentially declare this a disaster, and the state level fell short. Even though 20 counties were impacted, we had hundreds of thousands of dollars in damage here in Coffee County alone. The county's 3 weeks behind. We're 3 to 4 weeks behind. I would say that there is some level of an emergency here in Enterprise, even though FEMA or the state did not declare one. And so, Rainer, you're gonna have to help me on this, but I believe that the council has the authority to declare some level of emergency that would allow us to go out and enter into a contract if we needed to for debris removal.
So by declaring an emergency, basically what you're doing is saying you don't have to get competitive bid. Now, that's not the same thing as getting a good price. You understand? There's just the competitive bid process is long and, frankly, in many ways, antiquated. You want to get the best price, but you can go out to the 3 or 4 different vendors, contractors, and say, we need to get this work done. The emergency would be based on the fact several things. One, these piles of debris are a concern related to our storm drainage system. They're clogging it. That's something that's important. It's a fire hazard. It could be a fire hazard. And it's a breeding ground for pests as well. So if the council were to want to declare emergency, I think there's legal cause to do that.
And it's the result of storms.
That's exactly right. Yeah. It's acts of nature.
Okay.
So if the council would consider that tonight, I know it's not on the agenda, but I would like to move forward in that fashion. And speaking with Leanne, Barry, and our team, we think that there are potentially people out there, even though that a lot of the contractors are even booked up, but we have found some people that could do the work. It depends on how much we want done, but they could start pretty quickly. And we want to get caught up and keep the citizens happy and do the job that we need to. And again, let me commend the work that our staff and our people on the trucks, the supervisors, they're all pitching in and doing their job. They're working weekends, overtime. Nobody's sitting around. And so to you and to the public, I want to make that clear. They deserve a pat on the back. And any anger or animosity that's directed, send it to my office here at the city. Let us deal with it. We can do better. We will do better. But that's what I'm going to ask you to do to try to help address that tonight.
Scotty?
Yeah, working with FEMA a lot of times, it's tough getting money out of those folks, and they don't make the process easy. But if we can do it for emergency, I think we should go ahead and do it.
Correct.
Yeah, I would say that's the number one complaint I'm hearing right now.
Yeah.
I'd like to get that resolved as soon as we can.
Eugene?
I agree with getting some help to get this thing done, but I think we need to look at the process of some of the things that are being put out to be picked up. I know of a house on West College this past week where the homeowner, property owner, had the tenant evicted. I guess everything in the house got pulled out by the street, and the city picked it up. I don't think it's the city's responsibility to have to pick up stuff like that without the property owner paying for it. So I think we need to look at some of the things that we're having to pick up at the city's expense, that it should be being paid for by the property owner.
Yes, sir. And let me address a couple of other things with debris removal. So one, just what you said, we are looking at that, the methodology. It costs, if you put something out by the side of the road that's over the normal load, it costs $25.
Which is still not enough.
Correct. If we were a business, we would be out of business, but we're not. We provide that service to the people, but they should get what they pay for. And frankly, we're not delivering, and that's not on our people. It's kind of multi-pronged. One of those issues is also pay, particularly with CDL drivers, and not that everybody in town isn't looking, in the country looking for CDL drivers, but just looking at our local area. We're behind in the market, and we continue to lose people, compounded with the amount of trash that we had and debris from the storms. That exponentially went up 3 or 4-fold. Our staff has continued to decrease. Even over the last 2 weeks, we've lost 2 more drivers. So I would say out of 25, we're down 8 right now, which has exacerbated the issue. So while I appreciate the patience that most of our community has had, I do understand the angst and animosity towards the city. It should be directed here in our office, the mayor's office, at me, and not the employees that are doing their job, though. Going forward, I would like to bring a proposal to you that we have been working on to address those pay inequities. Obviously, the sooner we do that, if we could wait till budget, that's an ideal situation, but it doesn't. It waits several months to fix the problem or begin to address it. It impacts our ability to recruit and retain the drivers that we have, and try to get new ones in the door. So, I can answer some questions about that, or have Mr. Mott or Ms. Schwartz come up and talk about that as well.
Also, I think when a contractor comes in to pick up a permit for a job, whether it be a new construction or a remodel, they need to be told at that time that their debris is their responsibility to being taken care of. I see stuff put out by the road all the time by contractors that the city's picking up.
And to kind of piggyback off of Eugene, we've gone from, in this very conversation when you got started, talking about storm debris, FEMA, all the way to lack of drivers and short staff. So there are a lot of variables that need to be addressed.
Yes, ma'am.
Before we make rash decisions. So we need to really, when we're looking at what we're going to do going forward, we need to have a compiled
I agree.
Suggestion or things to look at, because yes, we have had storms and we do have storm debris, but that's not our biggest issue. If you ask me, that's unfortunate. But prior to the storms, we got mattresses, couches, clothes, dressers, you name it. Just piles and piles of stuff all over the city. You just drive anywhere down the street, you're gonna just see all kind of mess. So we need to really just tackle that. This is a mess. It's been ongoing for the longest before any storm came. If you just be honest and just crack the egg, that's the real deal. So my suggestion is that we need to look at the real deal and put it together, and then come back to us and say, this is our suggestion, and have us something to look at. I'm not necessarily opposed to going to FEMA. Any monies that we can get certainly are welcome, but we can't just want to blame everything on just the storm.
Sure.
It's a lot of things to look at. Fortunately, we're short-staffed. We don't have the man, woman power a lot of times, and our staff are doing the best they can. But that is a lot of the calls that I'm getting about when they're coming. It's so much stuff. And some people even calling not because it's their stuff, but just don't want to drive down their street.
That's right.
And see everybody else's stuff.
So we're up against the clock here. So to be clear, this is what I'm hearing. The recommendation and concurrence from council is two-pronged approach. We got a long-term solution of which we're working on. That's pay, that's methods, that's maybe contracting the old-fashioned way, outside going out and getting bids. And then we've got the immediate, we've got debris in the streets right now. Let's get it picked up. You need an emergency declaration, which does not involve FEMA, to be clear. This does not involve FEMA. This is just a local declaration.
That's right.
To use local funds to get this stuff picked up by hiring outside contractors.
That's what I agree with.
Yeah. So that's what we're addressing tonight. So I just want to be clear. Everybody's okay with that, right? Okay. All right, Rainer, you gonna prepare us a motion to properly get that? Okay, something I can read.
I don't know about that.
All right, so we're going to have to recess our work session. We will reconvene after our regular meeting in executive session to discuss some economic development issues, if everybody's agreeable to that. Looks like we got about 15, 20 minutes of economic development discussion. So, like I said, we'll recess that, and I will, if y'all will turn with me back to your council meeting agenda. I've got 6 o'clock, so I'll call this meeting of the Enterprise City Council to order. Let the record show that all members of the council are present. If you will, stand with me for the opening prayer and pledge of allegiance. Do I have Pastor Joey Barrett? All right, so Pastor Barrett is from the College Avenue Church of Christ, going to lead us in our opening prayer.
Before we pray, you all probably don't remember me, but I was here a while back with about 30 other pickleball players. I'm actually going to pickleball after this prayer, but before we pray, I just want to thank you all for your willingness to listen and your commitment to help make this community better. So let's pray. Dear Almighty God, our Heavenly Father, we come to you this evening. Father, we pray that you be with the citizens of Enterprise. We pray, Father, that you be with their minds and their hearts. Help them to help us to realize that our elected officials are human beings. And we pray, Father, that they will be treated with kindness, fairness, and respect. And Father, we also pray that you be with our officials here. Bless their families. We're thankful for the sacrifices that they've made to serve this community. And we pray that you bless them. We also pray, Father, that you keep them away from the temptation to ever abuse their position of power. Father, I pray that this meeting tonight will go well. I pray, Father, most importantly, that we will fulfill our purpose, and that is to glorify you. And we do that through your Son, and it's in his name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, guys.
Join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. All right, Council, you should have the agenda in front of you. I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda as submitted with an addition to new business. First item in new business is a local emergency declaration or state of emergency declaration. Do I hear a motion?
I move to approve the agenda as submitted with the addition.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the agenda as submitted with the addition of the local state of emergency declaration. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, we'll now consider the consent agenda. All matters listed within the consent agenda have been distributed to each member of the council for review, are considered to be routine, and will be enacted by one motion of the City Council with no separate discussion. If separate discussion is desired on an item, that item may be removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda by request of a member of the City Council. I now call for a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, we'll now have a request to address the council for a permit request from WEPS, the Run Baby Run 5K. All right, now recognize Melissa Braun, representing Wiregrass Emergency Pregnancy Services, who has requested to address the council to obtain a permit to hold the Run Baby Run 5K on Saturday, September 9th, 2023 from 8 a.m. until 12 p.m. Ms. Braun? Hey.
So we're going to run, this is our annual Run Baby Run. We do this every year. It's at Bates Memorial Stadium. The runners will go around the campus of the Enterprise High School and then back at Bates. We start around 8, we end at 12, less than 100 runners. We have different civic organizations that'll also be helping, like Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts. And that's it, just permission to hold it again.
All right. Any questions of Ms. Braun? Chief, you good?
right.
All right.
Thank
Thank
you,
you
guys.
very much. All right. I'll entertain a motion to approve this request.
I move to approve the permit request as submitted.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, we'll now have the portion of the meeting called Privilege of the Floor. This allows anyone present here this evening 3 minutes to address the council. Is there anyone here that wishes to address the council? Yes, sir. If you could use the microphone and speak clearly into it, tell us who you are, and take you 3 minutes to tell us what you're here for.
Yes, sir. Thank you. My name is Jesse Ray Bowman Sr., U.S. Army retired. I live at 304 Willow Drive. On May 15th, the mayor signed a proclamation, and I would like to read a section from that proclamation for you. Whereas it is important that all citizens know and understand the problems, duties, and responsibilities of their police department, and that members of our police department recognize their duties to serve the people by safeguarding life, property, by protecting them against violence or disorder, and this portion I would like to emphasize, and by protecting the innocent from deception and the weak against oppression or intimidation. I come here today to ask who is covered under this proclamation. Is it all citizens of Enterprise? Is it only the police department, city workers, county workers, or their associates? I ask these questions because as far as me and my family, we have not been protected by such a proclamation. In the spring and summer of 2020, the mayor gave me a guarantee that as long as I followed the law and let the process work out, then the right thing would happen. I was sitting there with the mayor and Captain Moore at the time. This was not the case. Through false allegations that were easily proven, mine and my family's lives were completely turned upside down. I begged and I pleaded for someone to look at the only evidence there was, which would have exonerated me. Instead, nothing was heard and nothing was seen. Because of this, my children paid an ultimate price. They were also removed from my care and my custody. Before this happened, my children were both honor roll students and my daughter attended Beta Club. After the move, they faced actual mental and physical abuse. They both suffered in school due to lack of leadership and assistance, and I still to this day cannot get them into school because after months, I still await a signed custody agreement from the county office. Why? I have made verbal complaints to the police department only to have those same officers I complained about be aggressive with me about the complaint, which I have evidence of. I've had multiple police reports written incorrectly. Someone forced their way into my property. They were intoxicated. They assaulted my wife. And even though they were still on the premise when police arrived, and I had video evidence of the assault, the report was written down as verbal abuse, domestic violence, and it ended in a small fine. Perjury is a crime. Filing false reports to the police is obstruction of justice and is also a crime. Knowingly causing physical or mental trauma in children is child abuse, also a crime. And an officer discouraging and essentially threatening with retaliation should be a removable offense. I, to this day, have evidence that my children have been and still are being abused with no assistance, while the person who has committed these crimes is plastered over many officers and high-ranking city officials' social medias. Is this what it takes to skirt the law? Mr. Johnson, when I came to you about my encounter with Chief Moore with evidence, you never asked to see it, and your solution was simply speak with Chief Moore again, and I quote, not create myself a problem. When will someone ask to see this evidence of these claims, and why does it seem like everyone is afraid to see them and afraid of true justice? Thank you for your time, and God willing, I look forward to speaking with some of you to find some resolution soon.
Sir, repeat your name, please.
Jesse Bowman Sr.
Bowman, B-O-W-M-A-N.
Yes, sir. Jesse Ray Bowman Sr.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right. So anyone else here to take privilege of the floor? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to staff reports. Do we have any staff reports? Chief Davis?
I don't have anything, obviously, for you to vote on or consider tonight, but I wanted to let you know that it was my interest, and I believe I've mentioned this to a few of you in the past, Now that we have the new engine in place, soon we will have the ladder truck back. At that time, I had expressed an interest in donating a 1989 E1 Cyclone 2, which we do not need to continue upkeep on, but is still a good engine, to the Coffee County Volunteer Firefighters Association, which would allow them to loan out said vehicle should one of the local fire departments have a truck go down. Most of them have one, as you can imagine. This would help shore up the people that assist us when we need help, and obviously assist their communities. As far as the vehicle goes, if we were to sell it, I think if you were to get $12,000 out of that thing, I would be shocked. If you were to get 8, I'd be surprised. If you got 5, I think that'd probably be about the right ballpark. So there's a far greater advantage in my thought process is making sure that it's local and shoring up some of our local first responders.
So aside from just being good neighbors, I assume a stronger volunteer force out in the community also helps us in mutual aid situations and all that.
We've all seen them come to our assistance. That's exactly right.
Okay.
The stronger we can make them, the more we can help them. You guys have been very clear. If there's a mutual aid call, you want me en route. That's exactly how we behave. Conversely, they have done the same for us. So I would very much like to see us do this. They are interested. I communicated just to see if there was any issues. I've talked to Rayner. He said that he doesn't believe that there will be any type of major issue. And unless there's a concern, I would like to bring that to the council at the next meeting for you to vote on. If you have any questions, obviously, I just didn't want you to be blindsided at the next meeting.
All right. Sonia?
Good.
I'm good with it.
Good. All right.
Thank you.
Sounds good. Thanks, Chief. Any other staff reports that we didn't get to in work session? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to old business. We'll now review and consider bid recommendations for the 2021 CDBG demolition project, Phase 6. I introduce and call for consideration of a recommendation from David Ewing, project consultant, to award the bid for the 2021 CDBG demolition project, Phase 6, to Lewis Incorporated in the total base bid amount of $62,040. The award of this base bid would necessitate that the city inject $7,350 in local monies to demolish and clear all 9 properties as bid. The award of any of the deductive alternates would result in an adjusted contract amount that could be paid in full by CDBG grant funds. The bids received are as follows. So you'll see the list of 115 Lofton Drive, 129 Lofton Drive, 204 Johns Alley, 505 and 1/2 Friendship Street, 0 Gilmore Street, 101 Meredith Drive, 114 Lofton Drive, 704 North Raw Street, and 0 Cinema Drive. I'm not going to read each amount, but that's in aggregate $62,040. You should have that list in front of you. And then the deductive alternates are deduct number 1, 0 Cinema Drive of $25,790. Deduct number 2, 704 North Raw Street of $4,850. And deduct number 3, 114 Lofton Drive of $5,300. Do I hear a motion?
I move that we approve the recommendation for David Ewing to award the bid to Lewis Incorporated with the deduct number 1, 0 Cinnamon Drive, for the amount of $25,790.
I second it.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the recommendation of $62,040 minus the deduct number 1 of $25,790. Is there any further discussion? All right, all those in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, we'll move on to new business. The first item is the item we added to the agenda, which regards the local state of emergency declaration. We could have our city attorney approach. All right, so as discussed in the work session prior, I'm gonna read this motion. and entertain approval from the council. So, do I hear a motion that an emergency be declared related to storm debris removal due to the following? The recent storms were severe and caused an accumulation of debris in large amounts, and the debris is causing hazards, both real and imminent, which need to be abated as soon as possible for the safety of the public. And I further move as part of the declaration that the mayor be authorized to negotiate and contract with one or more contractors after getting the best quotes to assist with the debris removal. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Yeah, second.
All right, we have a motion and a second for this emergency declaration. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, moving on to the second item of new business, to review and consider Resolution 07-1823, the procurement of underwriting services for 2023 warrant. I introduce and call for consideration of Resolution 07-1823, providing for the approval of Fraser Lanier Company Incorporated as underwriter in connection with the proposed issuance of the city of its general obligation warrant, Series 2023. Resolution 07-1823 further provides that should the city, in its sole discretion, elect not to proceed with issuance, no fees nor expenses shall be charged to the city. Do I hear a motion?
I move to adopt Resolution 7-1823.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, with a motion and a second to adopt Resolution 07-1823. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. I will now review and consider Resolution 07-1823A, the procurement of bond counsel for 2023 warrant. I introduce and call for consideration of Resolution 07-1823A, providing for the approval of Butler Snow LLP as bond counsel in connection with the proposed issuance by the city of its general obligation warrant, Series 2023. Resolution 07-1823A further provides that the city, in its sole discretion, elect not to proceed with the issuance, no fees nor expenses shall be charged to the city. Do I hear a motion?
Move to adopt Resolution 07-1823A.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to adopt Resolution 07-1823A. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We'll now consider a motion to approve and ratify an easement and use agreement for the Cutts property. I call for a motion to approve and ratify the easement and use agreement between the City of Enterprise and Rick and Leanne Cutts related to the property where Cutts Restaurant is located. The agreement provides the city has or will make certain improvements to the Cutts parking lot in exchange for easement and other rights to the city as to the Cutts property. This agreement is in furtherance of the planning and construction of the new recreation complex. Do I hear a motion?
I move to approve and ratify the mayor's execution of the agreement.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve and ratify the mayor's execution of the agreement. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We'll now consider a request for permission to purchase scoreboard from Parks and Recreation out at Donaldson Park. I introduce and call for consideration of a request from Blake Moore, Parks and Recreation Superintendent, to purchase one multi-sport scoreboard from Electromech Scoreboard Company at a cost of $9,656. The new scoreboard will replace the Donaldson Field 1 scoreboard damaged in a storm. Do I hear a motion?
Move to grant the request for Blakemore.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to grant the request. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We'll now consider a request for permission to construct a balcony from Navigator International, Bryan Building. I introduce and call for consideration of a request from Navigator International to construct a balcony on the new Bryan Building downtown that will overhang the public sidewalk. Do I hear a motion?
I move to grant the request from Navigator.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to grant the request. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We'll now consider a request permission to construct a balcony for Donafro Architects WKMX building. I Introduce and call for consideration of request from Donafro Architects to construct a balcony on the WKMX building downtown that will overhang the public sidewalk. Do I hear a motion?
Move to grant the request from Donafro Architects.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to grant the request. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We'll skip the mayor's report in his absence. Sonia, you have any comments?
Thank everyone for coming out tonight, and thank you, staff. I know we discussed a lot of things and threw a lot more things at you, of course, but appreciate all your hard work. And Mr. Bowman, thank you for coming and addressing us. I'm unfamiliar with what you spoke to us about, but I certainly don't mind speaking with you at a later time. Thank you, everyone.
Mr. Coolsby?
I'd like to thank everyone for coming tonight. We had a lot of food for thought tonight. I hope a lot get accomplished from it. Hope you have a good evening. Thank you.
Mr. Padgett?
Thank everyone for coming as well. A lot of good news on the progress already on the Q3 goals. I'd like to thank the Public Works Department for all the work they have been doing, and glad that we have given them some much needed help. And you all have a good night.
Yeah, I'd like to thank everyone for coming, and thank you to all our citizens watching on our YouTube. Something I'd like to mention on when we talk sanitation, I've sent this out to several folks, but if you go up the Center of Enterprise website, go to departments, go to Public Works, go down to sanitation, there's a list that lists everything you can put out, shouldn't put out, the schedule for the holidays, it's all there. So please download that. If you've got somebody that doesn't get on Facebook or get on website, download it for them so they can see it. And Jesse, thank you. I'm glad you took my suggestion to come to the meeting tonight after several calls. And God bless everybody.
All right. Yeah, thank everybody for coming. Mr. Bowman, thank you for your remarks. Certainly willing to look into the situation. But I've also got some comments in the mayor's absence. I got some comments that I'll read on his behalf. Would like to take a moment to recognize the police department and all the other first responders that were part of Friday's standoff. We appreciate the willingness and support of several state and local agencies who assisted in the situation that ended peacefully. So, Chief Moore, certainly job well done, and the prayers answered that everything ended peacefully. So, thank you all, and send our regards to all the other agencies that assisted. Fire department will be conducting hydrant testing over the next few weeks. If you see our firefighters out there, please give them plenty of room to conduct the necessary testing. This testing should not impact the quality of the water. Tomorrow is the ribbon cutting for the incubator shipping container in downtown Enterprise and the lot next to the library, which is now called the Nook. We hope you will come out and support the new space for up-and-coming businesses. Thursday, the city is teaming up with Life South for a blood drive. It's happening from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. at the Enterprise Farmers Market. This weekend, the state of Alabama is hosting the annual back-to-school tax-free sales tax holiday. The city is hosting a back-to-school bash downtown. We hope you will come check out the Nook space, support local businesses, and gear up for the new school year. Registration for Enterprise Parks and Rec, tackle, and flag football and volleyball ends on July 28th. You can register in person or online. I would also like to take a moment to congratulate the 11U All-Star Baseball team, which won the World Series in Gulfport, Mississippi over the weekend. Congratulations to the players and coaches. We look forward to recognizing them at a future meeting. A reminder that the barricades in downtown are in place to keep you safe. Please do not move them or cross them. And a reminder to please only cross in the designated crosswalks along Main Street. As always, stay up to date with what's happening in Enterprise by following our Facebook page or logging on to our website at enterpriseal.gov. All right, again, thank you all. We are adjourned. We will reconvene in work session as soon as the room quiets down. Oh, I'm sorry. Got that hour. We're gonna adjourn this meeting, convene, and our E911 board meeting will convene, and then we will reconvene in work session. So feel free to stick around for those exciting meetings. We are adjourned. Yeah, they're seeing that.
Turner, we're gonna leave that active, right?
Yes, yes.
Where's your mineral?
Anchor man with Will Service. For his reason, telephone.
They're still there. You gotta get the exhaust put on it too. Just make sure you take all the.
Oh, really? Well, I'm 6 years in. So far, avoided police matters. I have to go 10 more years behind. 7 years. I'm 7 years in. Y'all are 3 years in. In November, y'all will be 3 years. 2.5. Well, it's certainly not. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'll call the room to order. This is the meeting of the E911 board, and let the record show that all board members are present, and the board members are members by virtue of being council members. So, I'm sorry, not council, but board, you should have received a copy of the November 1st, 2022 minutes for your review. I will entertain a motion to approve those minutes of the November 1st, 2022 board meeting as submitted.
I move that we approve the minutes as submitted.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, we've got one item of new business, which is a request permission to seek bids for 2023 Explorer. I introduced a call for consideration of request from E911 Coordinator Tangi Hill to seek bids on a 2023 Ford Explorer or equivalent make and model. The vehicle is a non-budgeted item in the FY 2023 E911 budget. What we'll do is I'll entertain a motion. If we get a second, then we'll discuss this. So do I hear a motion?
I move to grant the request from Tangi Hill.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Chief or Tangi, you want to brief us on this since we haven't had the benefit of a work session?
So the old vehicle she has is a Dodge Ram. It's 2005. It's on about the last leg. We intended to look at getting another vehicle, and then it got removed from the budget. But we've looked at her funds, and she has plenty for it. But the previous bid came in for F-150, I think, and it was way too much that we weren't going to entertain it. So we're looking for something else that it's economical, cost effective, but can get her to where she needs to go to do her job of E911 addresses and things of that nature.
All right. Questions, Sonia?
This says a Ford Explorer or equivalent. Are we going to give all the local dealers a chance to bid on something?
Yes, sir. That's my intent of the ORI equivalent. Is I think we can find something somewhere, because it doesn't have to have a police package or it doesn't have to have certain things to it. It's just a mode of transportation. I think we can find, or the like, rather it's Honda, Hyundai. I'd like to give everybody an opportunity to do it. So,
Greg?
I'm good.
I'm good.
So, you say we've got the money in our budget for that, Leanne.
The cash is available. The money in the budget was not approved when we did the original
Right.
budget. So the procedure then would be is that once the bids come back, we'd request then an amendment to her.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I
budget
misspoke.
to
It's
cover
not
that.
in the budget, but we do have. She
The
has the
fund.
funds available
Yes,
in
sir.
her.
Yes.
In her organization. It's not something we're going to have to fund with
No.
the. So, how long did how long do these vehicles typically last? How many miles? I'm just unfamiliar with your usage.
2005. I mean, that's a pretty good time. Almost we're almost looking 20 years. And again, I imagine if we looked at it, it's probably pretty low mileage too. So I think this will last a good long time.
Okay. All right.
So this was replacing the one that we approved to go for bid back in November, the F-150. Okay. So that was never purchased.
Right. Yes, it was never purchased, and it's just not worth sinking any more money into repairing it. So.
Yeah. All right. Y'all have anything else to add? All right. Anything else? All right. We have a motion and a second on the floor to grant this request. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right. Any other business? All right. All right, we are adjourned, and we will reconvene in our work session. So if you would, please turn back to me, with me. We got through everything except for the last item, which is an executive session regarding economic development. Is it limited to economic development? Jonathan, Mr. Telos. Our executive session is limited to economic development. All right, I will entertain a motion to go into executive session about 20 minutes. 20 minutes or less. We will return. We don't expect to, we of course will not perform any business because we're just in work session. We don't expect to address anything else. Do I hear a motion?
Make a motion, we adjourn to executive session.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, we'll be back around 7 o'clock, if not before. Yep.